What a beautiful morning. The weather is perfect. There's a nice warm breeze. Some of my orchids are in bloom. I'm just sitting on my patio enjoying a cup of coffee. How could this day get any better? Before I was into rare plants, tropical plants, gardening, any of that, I was into orchids. I mean, really deep into orchids. And I still have quite a few, and I really enjoy them, especially when they're in bloom. So this morning, I think I'll just relax and catch up on some email. Wait a minute, what is this? Orchids in bloom at Fairchild Gardens? Orchid vendors, music, live plant demos, March 13th through the 21st. How to pollinate and breed orchids, the Million Orchid Project walking tour, how to attach orchids to trees, orchid garden walk. This sounds amazing. Honey! Hello and welcome to Peggy's Plants, coming to you from the Florida Keys. You guessed it. Today we're going to Orchids in Bloom at Fairchild Gardens. I've never been to this event before and I'm very excited about it. And here we are on the grounds of Fairchild Gardens. It's absolutely beautiful. This is the main building and the main entrance. Once you enter the building, you will be in the gift shop. And I found these beautiful orchid embedded bowls. Absolutely beautiful. But this is also where you buy your ticket and pass through to the garden grounds. Admission was $25, which is the cost of admission to Fairchild Gardens, so you have access to the entire 83 acres. The first group of tents, they're not orchid sellers, but just a handful of miscellaneous sellers. And I had to stop at this tent because I saw these pitcher plants with these huge pitchers and all of these bug-eating plants. So I found that kind of interesting. So I stopped and talked to the seller and found out that she is one of my viewers. How cool is that?
Hi, I'm Cheryl, and I'm the owner of Lucky Bamboo for You plants, and I specialize in carnivorous plants.
Okay, and if someone wanted to get in touch with you, how would they find
Oh,
you?
yeah, my email, which is S like Sam, D like David, T as in Tom, 0289 at AOL.com.
She has some of the largest pitcher plants I have ever seen. And for my aroid lovers, guess what else she had? Just a little cutting from her Thai constellation. Look how big this thing is and fenestrated. The only other non-orchid seller that I stopped by was this cute little setup here, and she had Begonia maculata, she has some micans, she has Adansonii, so a nice little variety. I know she had a few Hoyas, and she was such a nice lady, and I feel bad that I didn't get her name. And as you can see, she has a little bit of everything to offer, some very interesting plants. And definitely, I'm sure you've probably noticed a different way of planting. They're kind of like kokedama, but she was explaining that they have soil inside and the fertilizer and all of that. So very interesting. The first time I visited Fairchild Gardens, I saw this display of Vanda orchids, and I was so fixated on how they had them displayed. And I was determined that this time I was going to see how they did this. And it's very simple. It's just one of those stakes like you get from Home Depot, the plastic coated stakes, and they anchor the Vanda to it. But it makes such a nice visual display. Look at all of these Vanda orchids. Just an ocean of Vandas. And as we continue on, we come to a clearing, and there are tons of tents of orchid sellers. There are international sellers here as well as local. There's definitely a lot of vendors here and a lot of orchids that I've never seen before. So it's quite interesting. I'm really enjoying it here. The price ranges I've noticed anywhere from $10 to hundreds of dollars, all different kinds of orchids. The vendors don't hesitate. If you have questions, they will sit and explain to you and seem to really be enthusiastic about talking about their orchids. Now, this event is not just an orchid sale. This is also an opportunity for Fairchild Gardens to educate the public on orchids. So while all this selling is going on, there's also little workshops. There's an orchid garden walking tour where the guide walks you through and tells you about the orchids and all of that, the care, all of that kind of stuff. And there's a workshop on how to pollinate and breed orchids. And they also teach you how to attach orchids to trees. Now, a lot of you may not be aware, this Fairchild Gardens is in South Florida. And way back when, South Florida was like flooded with native natural orchids growing on trees. And you just don't see that anymore. And one of the big things that Fairchild Gardens is doing, in addition to just bringing attention and, fostering a love for orchids, is they're educating the public on native orchids. And they have a project that has been going on. It's a 5-year project, and it's called the Million Orchid Project. And what this project does is they are propagating millions of orchids with the purpose of reintroducing these orchids into the landscapes of South Florida. So very interesting, and later on in the video I'll actually show you some shots of the lab. I miss the little workshop they did on that, but I can still show you the lab. Look at these Vandas. And yeah, you see that price tag, $500, $250, but look at the size of these orchids. These are mature orchids, so they take years to get to that point. But just very, very interesting. And then here's a table of orchids in bloom. This is a table where the Fairchild Gardens is actually selling some orchids. So that I believe were grown on site. I could be wrong about that, but I believe they were grown on site. But just a great event for people who love orchids to get some knowledge. Even if you don't know a lot about orchids, you come away from this Orchids in Bloom event with a new appreciation, if nothing else. So they had vanilla orchids. I love walking these gardens. As you can see, now these are not for sale. These are here all of the time, and they have mounted them on the palm trees. So very cool. I love to come here and get different ideas of how to mount my orchids. And Vanda orchids, I love them, but they can be challenging because they have all those roots. So displaying them can be difficult. And this is another seller that a lot of you know are aware of. Moats Orchids is a grower from South Florida. He sells online and all of that. So if you're an orchid lover, you've probably heard of Moats Orchids. And over here are some bromeliads, and you know how I feel about bromeliads, but how can you possibly have a tropical garden without bromeliads? And these are absolutely amazing. Up ahead is another clearing with even more sellers. So as you can see, this is not a small event. This is a rather large event. And you're walking through the grounds and you're seeing the things that the sellers are offering, as well as the setup for Fairchild Gardens. Now, this is not part of the sales. This is just how they have this area, how they have their orchids displayed in this area. Fairchild Gardens is set up like a tropical jungle. It gives you a glimpse as to how these orchids and other plants would grow naturally. They also have a plant conservatory and a rare plant house, but I'll share those with you in another video. One thing that really impresses me about these plants that I'm seeing displayed at Fairchild Gardens is the size of these plants. Look at the size of these Vandas. Now, grown outside, climbing trees, look how huge they are. They are massive. as well are a lot of these other plants. And look up above. It's like there's orchids everywhere. I mean, I was missing out on things because I was just looking like at eye level, and then I look up and there's orchids literally everywhere. It's absolutely amazing. I can just imagine walking through a tropical rainforest or the Amazon or something like that and seeing all of these orchids just climbing the trees and growing in nature. It's really beautiful, something to see. And just look at all of these plants. This place is so amazing. This just makes me want to go home and mount even more orchids on my trees. But what we're coming up to now is the facility where they are doing it's the micro propagation lab for the Million Orchid Project that I spoke to you about earlier. And I think what they're doing is absolutely amazing. If you are interested in more information about the Million Orchid Project that's going on at Fairchild Gardens or any other projects they have or events that are upcoming, go to their website. They have a lot of information on it. It's a really nice website. If you're ever in the Miami area or you live in the area, you probably want to check out Fairchild Gardens if you're into plants in any way. And even if you're not into plants, it's just a very nice, serene place to visit. And they even have this beautiful butterfly garden that they have more than 40 species of butterflies among tropical plants and orchids. They even have a metamorphosis lab that shows each stage of a butterfly's transition. It's just amazing. There's definitely some neat things going on here, and I think this would be a nice outing for the family. So that's Fairchild Gardens, Orchids in Bloom. This event is going on until March 21st. They're open from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. You still have time to get out there and enjoy it. Thank you so much for watching. Take care. Hope to see you next time. Bye-bye.